The cameras were rolling, and another big fight between Jessica Tarlov and Greg Gutfeld was happening live on the 5. Their usual arguments on the show are all about tough topics like immigration, crime, and who's really responsible in politics, but this time, things got way out of hand and didn't stay normal. As they kept talking back and forth, it turned personal, voices got super loud, and everything went out of control right there on TV. Producers jumped in fast, the cameras switched away. And just a little later, they walked Jessica Tarlov off the set. Whatever happened went too far, and Fox News doesn't let that kind of thing slide. A superheated argument between Fox News co-hosts Jessica Tarlov and Greg Gutfeld turned into one of the biggest moments everyone is talking about on the 5. It happened when producers were actually seen on camera telling Tarlov to leave the stage during the live show. The fight started during a long discussion about immigration, how the president leads, and Donald Trump coming back into the spotlight. The segment began with the hosts arguing about Trump's old comments on immigration. Gutfeld said voters like Trump because they're mad that the system gets taken advantage of, especially rules about asylum and birthright citizenship. But Tarlov didn't agree at all. She tried to explain the difference between people here without papers and people who came legally. She couldn't even finish her point because Gutfeld kept cutting her off and standing up for Trump's way of leading. He said Trump's fast style and how he talks to the media is totally different from President Biden's quieter way. As the argument got hotter between the two, Gutfeld brought up poll numbers to say that Trump's changes, like ending some DEI programs, tougher enforcement, and rules about transgender athletes in sports, show that most people really support him. Love shot back right away. She questioned whether it's right to make big decisions just based on what the majority wants. She warned that being mean can sometimes hide behind the idea of listening to the people. But as soon as she said that, a lot of the audience started laughing in a mocking way, and that probably made her even more upset. Things finally broke when they started talking about help for people who need it and work habits, with Tarlov standing up for Americans who are struggling. As the normal talk turned into a huge fight, producers had to step in. They walked Tarlov off the set, and the show suddenly went to commercial. Funny thing is, this isn't the first time Jessica Tarlov has had a major blow-up with Greg Gutfeld over one of their topics. She's the liberal voice, he's the conservative one, so they fight a lot about all kinds of stuff, like that time they went head-to-head talking about the Charlie Kirk situation, back in September 2025 on the 5. Things got really tense between Tarlov and Gutfeld while they discussed the terrible event where conservative activist Charlie Kirk died during a speech at Utah Valley University that led to a huge argument that almost got out of control. During the panel, Tarlov, who's always the liberal one at the table, said everyone should be careful about making big claims on political violence. She said any talk about the case needed real proof and full details. She brought up other sad events, like the death of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman, to show that political trouble doesn't come from just one side. Gutfeld shot that down fast. He even cut her off, saying the real question is why so much recent violence in big cases seems to come mostly from the left. When Tarlov tried to bring up other examples, Gutfeld got mad and told her, "Don't play that nonsense with me," and he said no to the whole both sides idea. The talk got even more heated. Gutfeld asked if most viewers even knew who Hortman was before she died, saying her story didn't get the same attention as Kirk's. He kept pushing against what Tarlov said, even telling her straight up, that issue is over. That only made her angrier. The moment went super viral online because the two were fighting again in public over something really serious. But this isn't the first time they've argued about the both sides thing while hosting the 5. They've fought many times over whether to look at both sides of a story. There was another shocking fight when they were arguing hard about abortion rules. On a September 2024 episode of the 5, Tarlov and Gutfeld got into another sharp argument about abortion policy, which is one of the biggest fights in the country right now. It started when Gutfeld said that since Trump and the Supreme Court sent abortion decisions back to the states, it's not really a big national issue for the next election anymore. He straight up said abortion isn't a national issue now, so women voters don't need to focus only on it. He explained that it's more about local elections than who becomes president. Tarlov hit back hard. She questioned both his main idea and if he was even right. She pointed to Trump's recent comments as proof, like how in Florida he was okay with longer abortion limits past 6 weeks, but then his campaign took it back. She asked, why did Trump flip-flop on that? She said Trump keeps changing his mind and his message about women's rights. The two kept talking over each other and interrupting, like they usually do when they're mad. Gutfeld was trying to talk about the big election picture. Tarlov was focusing on what it really means in real life and how things are changing. Gutfeld said the issue is spread out now and not the main thing for the country. Tarlov said Trump's changing views and new state rules keep abortion right in the middle of politics. Gutfeld and Tarlov have had tons of fights over the years, and sometimes it gets really Personal. Once Gutfeld said something that went too far, and Tarlov fired back quick. On a 2022 episode of The Five, Gutfeld and Tarlov got attention again when they argued about the tone and feelings during a talk on Elon Musk's social media posts and rumors about the attack on Paul Pelosi. It started with the panel talking about Musk's deleted tweet replying to a Hillary Clinton post about the incident. Tarlov was upset about how fast wrong information spreads. Gutfeld called Musk's comments just fun trolling. As they went back and forth, Gutfeld looked at Tarlov and said, "Look at you. You're getting too emotional about this." He was saying her reaction was too much. Right after he said it, the audience gasped, and everyone was shocked. Tarlov pushed back immediately. She said having a higher voice and caring a lot about a story doesn't mean she's too emotional. She even joked it was just estrogen. But calling her too emotional felt wrong because that word can mean different things when said to a woman. Another co-host, Jesse Waters, laughed and said Gutfeld just told a woman she's too emotional. As they kept going, Tarlov made a funny but serious point. HR watches this. She was reminding him about work rules and training, and the other hosts laughed. Gutfeld joked back, "Is that a threat? Good for you." The talk was lively, but it didn't stop the show. Like when Tarlov got walked off set, when the clip spread online, everyone talked about it. A lot of viewers who know their usual back and forth just saw it as normal since they're the biggest debate rivals on The Five. But people are always wondering what they're really like when the cameras are off. Even though Tarlov and Gutfeld have super intense arguments on air all the time, people who know them say their real relationship isn't just fighting. It has respect, being good co-workers, and even some personal kindness. Most people think the big TV fights mean they hate each other, but insiders say it's different when the cameras are off. On the show, Tarlov and Gutfeld always argue about huge political topics, from what causes political fights to immigration and how presidents lead. These talks usually get loud and make the audience react big, but people forget that this is how The Five is built. It loves big ideological fights between the one liberal voice and the conservative side. Tarlov herself has said the show's style is like real talks people have with friends or family who think differently. That means she doesn't actually hate anyone, including Gutfeld, off camera. They're not enemies like you might think, though they're not super close friends either. In one sweet moment, when Tarlov came back to work after her dad died, Gutfeld gave her real sympathy and support. He told her to take all the time she needed and said the whole team was there for her during a hard time. That's very different from their usual loud TV fights. People who work there say the hosts on The Five have to get along off screen to keep the show's energy good. Even if they argue hard on air, there are always talks about the show's chemistry, but it always points out that even when Tarlov and Gutfeld fight strong in debates, it's just part of their job and not real hate. Gutfeld has even said that even when he gets mad, it's just how they are on air, and he and Jesse Waters really like Tarlov. He said the feeling goes both ways. For Fox News fans, Tarlov is the liberal one going up against the conservative hosts, even after big blow-ups, like the hot September 2025 fight about political violence. The two have made up on air. During that one, Gutfeld later said sorry for yelling because the topic was personal. Tarlov said she wasn't mad at him. That's just one example of how they show support and act nice. When the show isn't on, which helps make their debates work without meaning real bad feelings. But interestingly, this isn't the only big rivalry on Fox News. If you watch a lot, you've probably seen the back and forth between Gutfeld and Brian Kilmeade too. There's another rivalry between Greg Gutfeld and Brian Kilmeade that's one of the most talked about things on Fox News, but it's a mix of on-air jokes, different ways of talking, and funny self-aware humor instead of real hate. Gutfeld, who co-hosts The Five and has his own show Gutfeld, is known for being funny, sarcastic, and ready to fight. So it's no surprise he got Tarlov so upset that producers had to ask her to leave. Meanwhile, Kilmeade, one of the main hosts on Fox Friends, has a more serious and straight style of news. Because their styles are so different, they have lots of verbal fights on air, full of jokes, cutting in, and sharp comments that play up how opposite they are. Gutfeld's jokes sometimes stop or poke at Kilmeade's serious points, especially in group talks, where Gutfeld's quick humor pushes against Kilmeade's way. One funny moment was when Gutfeld joked that Fox Friends might as well be cheering for Kilmeade. That line got a big crowd reaction and showed their clash. Even though these moments look tense or like a competition, both guys have said a lot of it is just for fun. In one talk when they were discussing Gutfeld's book, Kilmeade smiled and said to Gutfeld, "What is wrong with you? Why are you so obsessed with me?" Gutfeld answered back that if people weren't obsessed with someone, they'd worry. Kilmeade said the jokes don't really bother him, showing the rivalry is mostly friendly. Behind the scenes, Gutfeld and Kilmeade get along well and respect each other. But Gutfeld isn't the only one with rivals. Tarlov has several too, with other Fox News hosts, starting with Jesse Waters, who's actually close to Gutfeld on the show. On The Five, Jessica Tarlov and Jesse Waters have had several big on-air fights that show their huge political differences and how opinionated the show. Their talks are full of sharp words and clear tension that get a lot of attention. One of the most remembered fights happened during an immigration talk when Waters kept saying, "They're illegal, Jessica." That made Tarlov push back hard by giving examples of lots of undocumented people who haven't committed crimes. It started as a policy argument but quickly turned into personal shots. At one point, Tarlov hit back with a strong comment about Waters' lifestyle, asking, "Who's going to do your manicure?" Their fight got so loud that producers were signaling to cut, and they had to go to break. Their arguments have happened in other ways too. Once they fought about COVID vaccine rules under Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Tarlov said Waters wasn't ready for the talk and raised her voice to challenge his doubts about who can get the shot. Waters asked for details on who can't get it, and Tarlov answered strong, showing how direct and frustrated they can get. Besides immigration and health stuff, they fought in other topics too, where Tarlov's serious points get met with Waters' sarcastic or mocking comments that makes viewers online react a lot to how they are together. Tarlov has also had many on-screen fights with other Fox News people like Jeanine Pirro. On the 5, the relationship between Tarlov and Jeanine Pirro has lots of tense moments on air that show their big political differences and different ways of talking, often pushing the show to the edge. One fight happened during an immigration debate where Tarlov and Pirro totally disagreed on what legal asylum means and how tough enforcement should be. Tarlov said the law requires due process and asked Pirro if coming in without papers can still count as asylum. Pirro said only legal entry gets due process in her view. That led to a strong back and forth full of sharp disagreement. Another big moment was early in 2025 during a talk about the New Orleans vehicle incident. Tarlov challenged how Pirro talked about it, saying the person who did it was an American citizen, not someone here illegally, and accused Republicans of twisting the story to blame the border. Pirro fought back strong, saying she wasn't talking about immigration status and that crime connected to illegal immigration is still a big problem. The talk got loud as both kept interrupting and correcting each other. According to people inside Fox News, they once had a fight so intense that the production team had to step in because the tension was too high. Reports say both were talking loud over each other, with Pirro trying to finish without being cut off and Tarlov not backing down. Producers, worried the show was falling apart, cut straight to commercial. When the show came back, Tarlov wasn't on the set anymore, which surprised everyone and started lots of guesses from viewers. Another wild rivalry on Fox News is between Juan Williams and Jeanine Pirro. They've had loud arguments on TV too. On the 5, Juan Williams and Jeanine Pirro have had some of the most excited on-air fights, especially when talking about Donald Trump's impeachment. They don't hate each other personally, but they disagree a lot on live TV and show how heated political shows can get. One of the biggest fights happened while covering the impeachment when Williams, the liberal voice, brought up ABC News Ipsos polling that showed most Americans thought Trump's ask to a foreign leader to investigate a political rival was wrong. Pirro, a conservative former judge and big Trump supporter, jumped on his take right away. She said Democrats were using impeachment as nonsense, rumors, and hearsay, and attacked their plan. As Williams kept pointing to the poll and saying people should watch the hearings, things blew up fast. The two shouted over each other for almost 30 seconds. Pirro snapped, "Don't tell me to stop. I'm a judge." Williams fired back, "For a judge, you should know better." Pirro yelled, "Do not go there. Do not go there." The yelling was so big that other co-hosts like Waters had to jump in to bring the show back to normal talk and stop the fight. That loud moment got covered a lot by other news as a major drama. In fact, the 5 is famous for constant on-air fights between the co-hosts. That's what makes the show special. It gets huge reactions from viewers and other media, especially after big moments like when producers had to take Jessica Tarlov off set after her huge fight with Greg Gutfeld. The show's plan mixes different political views on purpose, liberal voices like Jessica Tarlov and Juan Williams with conservative ones like Greg Gutfeld, Jesse Waters, and Jeanine Pirro. That setup almost always leads to strong arguments, lots of interrupting, and raised voices as everyone defends their very different ideas. In episode after episode, these talks turn into heated fights. A recent gun control talk showed this perfectly when Juan Williams pushed for closing loopholes and more mental health help. Co-hosts like Waters and Gutfeld kept cutting in, arguing against him, and challenging how he said things, leading to fast talking over each other. How often and how intense these fights get has made people who study media put the 5 on lists of cable news shows with the most wild and emotional panel talks of the year, especially after big national news or political hot topics. A popular example was when Tarlov and Gutfeld had that major fight over the Charlie Kirk assassination, but lots of people say these Constant fights are what makes the Five fun to watch. The show lives on different views crashing together and lively arguments that keep people hooked. After all, they always cut each other off and challenge each other's facts. The rivalry between Tarlov and Gutfeld isn't just one fight. It's been happening over and over for years. Whose side are you on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. So, thanks for watching this video and we will see you in the next.